Introduction. Your life does not suffer from a lack of opportunity. It suffers from a surplus of distraction. In an age where every device promises convenience, connection and speed, something far more valuable is quietly slipping away: your attention. And without control of your attention, peak performance becomes impossible. Digital clutter is not just a messy inbox or a crowded home screen. It is the constant buzzing in your pocket. It is the endless scrolling that steals your evenings. It is the mental fog that follows you into important work. Bit by bit, it fragments your focus, weakens your discipline, and lowers your standards. You feel busy, yet strangely unaccomplished, connected, yet distracted, equipped, yet overwhelmed. The truth is simple: clarity creates power. When you remove what does not serve you, what remains begins to shine. When your digital world becomes intentional, your mental world becomes disciplined. And when your mind becomes disciplined, performance rises naturally. This audiobook is not about rejecting technology. It is about mastering it. It is about designing a digital life that supports your ambition instead of sabotaging it. It is about choosing focus over frenzy, depth over noise, and creation over consumption. In this audiobook, we will examine the hidden cost of distraction, strip away digital excess, build systems for focus, and install habits that protect your energy. Step by step, you will learn how to clear your space, sharpen your thinking, and unlock a level of productivity that feels calm, controlled, and powerful. Peak performance does not begin with doing more. It begins with eliminating what weakens you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop letting technology steal your attention. Attention is your most valuable currency. Not your time, not your talent, not even your effort. Your attention. Because wherever your attention goes, your life follows. What you consistently focus on expands. What you constantly interrupt weakens. And right now, whether you realize it or not, your attention is under attack. Every beep, every vibration, every glowing red notification badge is competing for a piece of your mind. You sit down to work, and within minutes, something pulls you away. A message, a headline, a video suggestion. You tell yourself it will only take a second, but seconds become minutes, minutes become fragments, and fragments become a day that never felt fully lived. Technology is not evil, it is powerful, and power without boundaries becomes theft. If you do not consciously decide where your attention goes, someone else will decide for you. Companies design platforms to hold your gaze for as long as possible. The longer you stay, the more profitable you become. That is the business model. Your distraction is revenue. Now pause and think about that. If your focus is constantly being bought and sold, how can you expect to build anything meaningful? Great work requires depth. Depth requires uninterrupted time, and uninterrupted time requires discipline. You cannot create excellence in a state of constant reaction. You cannot think clearly when your mind is trained to expect interruption. You cannot perform at your peak while living in fragments. You may believe you are multitasking. In reality, you are task switching, and every switch comes with a cost. Mental energy drains, clarity fades, momentum breaks. What could have taken 1 hour of deep focus stretches into 3 hours of scattered effort. By the end of the day, you feel exhausted, not because you work deeply, but because you were pulled in too many directions. Here is the truth. Control of your attention is control of your future. When you wake up and immediately check your phone, you hand over the steering wheel of your day. When you allow notifications to interrupt your work, you train your brain to expect distraction. When you scroll out of boredom, you strengthen the habit of escape instead of endurance. Small moments, repeated daily, quietly shaping your identity. But this can change. Start by recognizing that your attention deserves protection. Treat it like a high-value asset, because it is. Turn off non-essential notifications, not later. Now, decide specific times to check messages instead of reacting instantly. Create blocks of uninterrupted work where your phone is out of sight, not face down, not on silent, out of sight. You may feel discomfort at first. That discomfort is withdrawal from stimulation. It is your brain asking for the quick hit of novelty it has grown used to. Sit with it, let it pass. On the other side of that discomfort is clarity. On the other side is calm focus. On the other side is strength. You are not trying to become unreachable. You are trying to become intentional. When you choose when to respond, instead of responding automatically, something powerful happens. You move from reactive mode to creator mode. You stop living at the mercy of alerts and begin operating from purpose. You decide what matters. You decide what gets your energy. You decide what deserves your mind. Remember this, attention is finite. Every unnecessary scroll, every impulsive click, every distraction steals from something greater you could be building. A skill, a business, a healthier body, a stronger mind, a meaningful project. Reclaiming your attention is not dramatic. It is deliberate. It is a series of small, firm decisions, repeated daily. Protect your focus. Guard your time. Choose depth over noise. Technology should be your tool, not your master, and from this moment forward, you choose to take it back. Chapter 2. Clear your digital space. Clear your mind. Open your laptop and look at your desktop. Scroll through your phone and glance at the number of unread emails. Notice the dozens of open tabs, the cluttered downloads folder, the screenshots you meant to organize but never did. None of this seems urgent. None of it feels dramatic. But together, it creates a silent weight that follows you every time you sit down to work. Digital clutter is invisible, yet heavy. You may not trip over it like you would a pile of clothes on the floor, but your mind feels it. Every unorganized file is an unfinished decision. Every unread notification is an open loop. Every messy folder whispers, "You haven't handled this yet." And the mind does not like open loops. It keeps them in the background, quietly draining energy. A cluttered environment produces a cluttered mind. That is not philosophy, that is psychology. When your visual field is chaotic, your brain works harder to filter what matters. That extra effort reduces clarity, it lowers focus, it increases fatigue. You may think you are simply tired. In reality, you are overloaded. Simplicity restores power. Imagine opening your computer and seeing only what is essential, a clean desktop, clearly labeled folders, an inbox that does not intimidate you. Immediately, your breathing slows, your thinking sharpens, you feel in control. That feeling is not accidental. Order creates calm. Calm creates focus. Focus creates results. Start with your inbox. Do not try to answer everything at once. That leads to overwhelm. Instead, create structure. Unsubscribe from emails you never read. If you hesitate, ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time this email added real value to my life? If you cannot remember, let it go. Create folders for what truly matters. Archive what is no longer relevant. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is clarity. Then move to your desktop and files. Create broad categories. Work, personal, projects, learning. Keep it simple. You do not need a complicated system. You need a usable one. Delete duplicates. Remove outdated documents. Rename files clearly so you never have to guess what they contain. Every small act of organization reduces future friction. Now look at your phone. How many apps do you actually use with purpose? Not habit. Purpose. Remove what does not serve your goals. Move essential tools to your home screen. Hide or delete the rest. Rearranging your digital space sends a powerful message to your brain. I am intentional. You may feel resistance. You may think, this takes time. Yes, it does. But disorganization also takes time. It steals it daily in small, frustrating moments. Searching for files, scrolling for apps, rereading emails you forgot to process, Small inefficiencies compound into large losses. Clarity compounds too. A clean digital environment reduces decision fatigue. When you eliminate unnecessary choices, you preserve mental energy for meaningful work. You stop wasting willpower on trivial navigation and save it for creative thinking, strategic planning, and disciplined execution. That is how high performers operate. They remove friction before it becomes frustration. There is another benefit, one people rarely mention. Digital order improves self-respect. When your environment is organized, you signal to yourself that your work matters, that your time matters, that you matter. Chaos communicates carelessness. Order communicates intention. Do not confuse minimalism with deprivation. You are not stripping your digital life down to nothing. You are refining it, keeping what strengthens you, removing what weakens you, making space for what truly matters. Create a weekly reset ritual. Choose one day to review your inbox, tidy your files, clear downloads, and reset your digital workspace. Think of it as mental hygiene. Just as you would not ignore physical clutter for months, do not ignore digital clutter until it becomes overwhelming. Maintenance is easier than rescue. As your digital space becomes cleaner, notice what happens internally. Your thoughts become less scattered. Your focus becomes steadier. You begin work faster. You hesitate less. The invisible weight begins to lift. This is not about aesthetics. It is about capacity. A clear digital space increases your mental capacity to think, decide, and perform. It removes unnecessary noise, so your best ideas have room to breathe. Remember this: every file, every email, every app occupies space not only on your device but in your awareness. When you clear one, you clear the other. When you simplify your tools, you strengthen your thinking. Clear your digital space, clear your mind, and as clarity grows, so does your power to perform at your highest level. Chapter 3. Audit your inputs like a CEO. Your mind is a boardroom. Every idea that enters it takes a seat at the table. Some ideas strengthen strategy, others create confusion, and yet without realizing it, you allow anyone and anything to walk in and speak. News alerts, social media opinions, random videos, endless commentary. If you would never allow strangers to run a meeting in your company, why allow them to run meetings in your mind? High performers guard their inputs carefully. They understand a simple truth: what you consume daily shapes how you think, how you decide, and how you act. If you feed your mind noise, it produces noise. If you feed it clarity, it produces clarity. The quality of your mental diet determines the quality of your output. Think about your average day. How much of what you read, watch, or listen to truly moves you forward, and how much simply fills time? There is a difference between information and improvement. Information can entertain you, stimulate you, even excite you. Improvement transforms you. It strengthens your thinking. It sharpens your judgment. It deepens your focus. Scrolling endlessly feels harmless. It feels relaxing. But every scroll plants seeds: comparisons, distractions, impatience, anxiety. You may not notice it immediately, but your mind absorbs more than you realize. It begins to crave novelty. It begins to expect constant stimulation. And slowly your tolerance for deep, focused effort decreases. This is not accidental. Digital platforms are designed to keep you engaged, not to help you grow. They reward speed, reaction, and emotion. But peak performance requires depth, patience, and deliberate thought. If you allow your inputs to be fast and fragmented, your thinking becomes fast and fragmented. And fragmented thinking produces fragmented results. You must become the CEO of your attention. That means conducting a serious audit. What podcasts do you listen to? What accounts do you follow? What newsletters do you open? What conversations do you engage in repeatedly? Write them down if you must. See them clearly. Then ask one powerful question. Does this strengthen me? Not does it entertain me? Not does it distract me? Does it strengthen me? Strengthening inputs educate you, challenge you, inspire disciplined action, and elevate your standards. Weakening inputs drain time, provoke unnecessary emotion, or encourage passive consumption. Once you see the difference, you cannot unsee it. This does not mean you eliminate all entertainment. It means you choose it intentionally. Instead of default consumption, you practice deliberate selection. You decide in advance what deserves your attention. You schedule learning. You choose mentors through books and thoughtful content. You reduce exposure to negativity and outrage. You stop consuming content simply because it is available. Availability does not equal necessity. There is also value in silence. When you constantly fill every quiet moment with audio, video, or scrolling, you deny your mind the space it needs to process. Reflection turns information into wisdom. Without reflection, even the best content becomes noise. Allow boredom to exist. Allow your thoughts to surface. Many breakthroughs happen in silence, not stimulation. Consider implementing input boundaries. Designate certain times for consuming information and certain times for producing work. Do not mix them carelessly. When it is time to create, create. When it is time to learn, learn. This separation protects depth. It prevents your day from dissolving into endless reaction. As you refine your inputs, you will notice a shift. Your thinking becomes calmer. Your decisions become clearer. You feel less urgency to check for updates. The fear of missing out weakens. In its place, confidence grows. You are no longer chasing every headline. You are building something meaningful. Remember, your mind cannot outperform the material. It is consistently fed. Feed it courage, discipline, strategy, and wisdom, and it will return strength. Feed it distraction, comparison, and chaos, and it will return confusion. You are not obligated to consume everything. You are responsible for choosing wisely. Every day, information competes for entry into your awareness. Stand at the door like a leader. Evaluate what comes in. Reject what weakens you. Approve what strengthens you. Audit your inputs like a CEO. Because your life is the enterprise, your mind is the headquarters, and your attention is the investment that determines the return. Chapter 4. Reclaim deep work in a distracted world. Greatness is never produced in fragments. It is built in long, uninterrupted stretches of concentration, where your mind goes beyond the surface and begins to wrestle with complexity. That level of focus is rare today. Not because people lack intelligence, but because they lack depth, and depth requires protection. Deep work is the ability to focus on a demanding task without distraction. It is the state where hours pass, and you barely notice, where ideas connect, where problems untangle, where skill improves. In that space, you are not reacting, you are building, you are not consuming, you are creating. That is where peak performance lives, yet most days are structured against it. You begin a task, then check a message. You return to the task, then respond to an email. You make progress, then glance at a notification. Each interruption feels small, but it resets your mental momentum. The mind needs time to reach depth. Constant switching keeps you at the surface. Surface work feels productive. You answer messages, you attend meetings, you clear small tasks. You stay busy, but busyness is not mastery. Busyness is movement. Deep work is progress. There is a difference. If you want elite results, you must reclaim your ability to go deep. That begins with making it a priority. Not something you attempt when everything else is done, but something you schedule first. Decide in advance when you will enter a period of uninterrupted focus. Block the time. Defend it. Treat it as a serious appointment with your future. When that time begins, remove distractions completely. Phone out of reach. Notifications off. Tabs closed. Workspace clear. Do not rely on willpower alone. Design your environment so focus becomes easier than distraction. You are not weak for needing structure. You are wise for building it. At first, deep work will feel uncomfortable. Your brain, conditioned by constant stimulation, will crave interruption. You may feel restless. You may feel the urge to check something. Stay with the task. Let the urge pass. This discomfort is training. Each time you resist distraction, you strengthen concentration. Each time you continue, despite restlessness, you build endurance. Think of focus as a muscle. If you have not trained it, it will feel weak. But muscles grow under tension. The longer you sustain attention on meaningful work, the stronger your mental stamina becomes. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes standard. Deep work also demands clarity of objective. You cannot focus deeply on something vague. Define exactly what you are working on. Write it down if necessary. Instead of saying, "I'll work on my project," say, "I will draft the first section," or "I will solve this specific problem." Clear targets. Sharpen attention. There is another key element: rhythm. One long session per month will not transform you. Consistency will. Create a daily or near daily habit of depth. Even 90 focused minutes can produce more value than an entire day of fragmented effort. Over weeks and months, that discipline compounds. Skills sharpen. Output increases. Confidence rises. Notice how different you feel after deep work compared to shallow work. After shallow work, you may feel tired, yet unsatisfied. After deep work, you feel stretched but fulfilled. You sense progress. You respect your effort. That internal reward reinforces the habit. A distracted world will not make this easy for you. Notifications will continue. Demands will persist. Noise will remain. But you are not required to participate in every interruption. You are allowed to withdraw temporarily. You are allowed to create boundaries. You are allowed to choose depth over immediacy. Remember, the most valuable contributions you can make will not come from quick replies. They will come from thoughtful, concentrated effort, from wrestling with an idea long enough to understand it deeply, from practicing a skill until it becomes refined, from giving your full mind to one meaningful task. Reclaiming deep work is not a productivity hack. It is a decision about identity. You are choosing to be someone who works with intention, someone who respects focus, someone who understands that excellence requires immersion. Step away from the noise. Close the extra tabs. Silence the interruptions. Sit with the work long enough for your mind to go beyond the obvious. That is where growth happens. That is where mastery forms. That is where you separate yourself from the distracted majority. Reclaim depth, and you reclaim your edge. Chapter 5. Design a digital life that serves your goals. Tools are meant to serve the builder. When the builder begins serving the tools, something has gone wrong. Your phone, your laptop, your apps, your platforms. They are instruments. They are extensions of your intention. But if you have never paused to design how they fit into your life, they begin to design your life for you. A digital life by default is reactive. You wake up and check what arrived overnight. You respond to what others demand. You scroll through what algorithms decide to show you. The day unfolds based on notifications, not priorities. It feels normal because it is common, but common is not optimal. If you want peak performance, you must design your digital environment around your goals. That begins with clarity. What are you building? What are you improving? What matters most in this season of your life? A business, a career, your health, a creative pursuit. Your digital tools should point in that direction. Look at your home screen. Does it reflect your ambitions or your impulses? If your most visible apps are entertainment platforms, while your learning tools are buried in folders, your design is speaking. Rearrange it. Place creation tools where they are immediately accessible. Writing apps, project management systems, learning platforms. Make your goals visible. Now examine your daily flow. When do you create? When do you consume? If consumption fills the best hours of your day, and creation is left for when you are tired, you have reversed the priority. Design your day intentionally. Protect your high-energy hours for meaningful work. Schedule communication and browsing for lower-energy windows. Structure creates freedom. Without structure, you drift. Consider the number of platforms you maintain. Email, messaging apps, social networks, cloud storage, task managers. Each one requires attention. Each one adds complexity. Simplify where possible. Consolidate tools. Remove redundancies. If two systems perform the same function, choose one. Complexity feels sophisticated, but simplicity performs better. Your digital life should reduce friction, not increase it. For example, if you constantly forget tasks, build a single trusted task system. Capture everything in one place. Review it daily. When your mind trusts your system, it relaxes. Mental bandwidth is freed. Clarity improves. The goal is not to manage more. It is to think less about managing. Automation is another powerful design principle. Automate recurring payments. Use templates for repeated work. Schedule reminders for important deadlines. Reduce the number of small decisions you must make daily. Every decision consumes energy. Preserve that energy for high-level thinking and execution. Boundaries must also be designed, not assumed. Decide when you are reachable and when you are not. Communicate those boundaries clearly where necessary. You do not need to respond instantly to prove your value. In fact, constant availability often lowers perceived value. Intentional availability increases respect, both from others and from yourself. Design also includes elimination. Not every tool deserves a place in your life. If an app consistently distracts you without meaningful return, remove it. If a platform fuels comparison instead of growth, limit it. You are not obligated to participate in every digital space. Participation is a choice. There is power in aligning your environment with your identity. If you see yourself as disciplined, your digital structure should reflect discipline. If you see yourself as focused, your tools should support focus. Identity reinforced by environment becomes behavior reinforced by habit. Think long-term. A digital life built around impulse leads to scattered years. A digital life built around intention leads to steady progress. Small design choices, repeated daily, compound into significant results. The layout of your phone may seem trivial. The structure of your calendar may seem minor. But together they influence how you think, how you act, and how you perform. You do not rise to your goals accidentally. You design for them deliberately. Every tool you keep should have a purpose. Every system you build should reduce friction. Every boundary you set should protect what matters. Technology is powerful. When aligned with clear goals, it accelerates progress. When left unmanaged, it accelerates distraction. The difference is design. Take ownership of your digital architecture. Simplify it. Align it. Refine it. Let every app, every platform, every workflow serve your mission. And when your tools serve your goals, your focus strengthens, your output increases, and your performance begins to reflect your true potential. Chapter 6. Break the addiction to constant stimulation. Silence has become uncomfortable. Waiting in a line feels unbearable without reaching for a screen. Sitting alone with your thoughts feels restless. Even a few spare minutes trigger the urge to check, scroll, refresh. This is not weakness. It is conditioning. And if you want peak performance, you must break it. Constant stimulation rewires your brain. Every swipe delivers novelty. Every notification offers a small reward. A new message, a new post, a new update. These micro-rewards release dopamine, the chemical associated with anticipation and pleasure. Over time, your brain begins to crave frequent hits of novelty. The result is subtle but powerful. Patience decreases, focus shortens, and ordinary tasks begin to feel dull. Deep work feels slower than scrolling. Reading a book feels harder than watching short videos. Practicing a skill feels more demanding than consuming entertainment. When your brain is trained for speed and stimulation, depth feels uncomfortable. But discomfort does not mean something is wrong. It means you are rebuilding strength. You must relearn how to tolerate stillness. Boredom is not your enemy. It is a doorway. In boredom, the mind begins to wander creatively. It connects ideas. It reflects. It imagines. Many of your best insights will not arrive when you are flooded with input. They will arrive in quiet moments, when nothing demands your attention. Start small. Leave your phone in another room for 30 minutes. Go for a walk without audio. Sit with a notebook and think without distraction. At first you may feel agitation. You may feel the impulse to reach for stimulation. Notice it. Do not judge it. Simply let it pass. The urge weakens when it is not fed. Breaking stimulation addiction also requires awareness of triggers. Do you scroll when you feel stressed? When you feel bored? When you feel uncertain about a task? Many distractions are emotional escapes. Instead of facing discomfort directly, you soften it with digital noise. But growth happens when you confront discomfort, not when you anesthetize it. Replace passive stimulation with active engagement. Instead of endless scrolling, read intentionally. Instead of background noise, practice focused learning. Instead of reacting to content, create something. Write, plan, build. Even reflection is more powerful than random consumption. The goal is not emptiness. It is intentional input. You may fear missing out. Missing a message, missing a trend, missing a moment. But ask yourself, what are you truly missing by constantly consuming? Often you are missing depth, missing progress, missing presence. The cost of constant stimulation is rarely obvious in the moment. It appears later, in unfinished projects and scattered thinking. Build stimulation discipline gradually. Design no stimulation windows during your day. No social media, no quick checks, just focused work or quiet thinking. Protect these windows like training sessions. Over time, your tolerance for depth increases. Your craving for constant novelty decreases. You begin to feel calmer. Sleep improves too. When your evenings are filled with endless scrolling, your brain remains alert. Stimulation close to bedtime fragments. Recovery. Replace late-night scrolling with reading or reflection. Give your mind space to slow down. Restoration is part of peak performance. Understand this clearly. The world profits from your distraction, but your goals require your discipline. Every time you resist impulsive stimulation, you strengthen self-control. Every time you choose silence over noise, you build clarity. Every time you sit with a difficult task instead of escaping it, you build resilience. This is not about eliminating pleasure. It is about reclaiming choice. You can enjoy technology without being controlled by it. You can use entertainment intentionally without needing it constantly. The difference lies in awareness and boundaries. Your brain adapts to what you repeatedly do. If you repeatedly seek stimulation, it demands more. If you repeatedly practice focus, it strengthens focus. If you repeatedly choose stillness, stillness becomes natural. Break the addiction gently but firmly. Reduce unnecessary stimulation. Increase intentional presence. Allow your mind to breathe. In that breathing space, clarity grows. Creativity expands. Performance improves. Silence is not empty. It is powerful. And when you no longer need constant stimulation to feel comfortable, you regain control of your mind, and with it control of your future. Chapter 7. Control the meaning of every event. Nothing has meaning until you assign it one. An unanswered message can mean disrespect, or it can mean someone is busy. A critical comment can mean humiliation, or it can mean useful feedback. A rejection can mean failure, or it can mean redirection. The event itself is neutral. The meaning you attach to it determines your emotional reaction. This is where your real power lives. Most people react not to reality, but to their interpretation of reality. They create a story instantly. They ignored me. They don't value me. I embarrassed myself. This always happens to me. Within seconds, a narrative forms, and the body responds to the narrative as if it were fact. If the story is negative, the emotion becomes negative. If the story is threatening, the nervous system activates, and then behavior follows the emotion. But what if the story is wrong? Dangerous confidence begins when you realize that interpretation is a choice, not always an easy choice, but a choice. You may not control what happens. You do control what it means. When something uncomfortable occurs, pause before assigning it significance. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? That simple question interrupts the automatic narrative. It opens space. It weakens the emotional charge. For example, if someone disagrees with you publicly, your mind may label it as disrespect. That interpretation triggers defensiveness. But what if it simply means they see the situation differently? What if it means they are confident enough to speak? What if it is not about you at all? The moment you expand interpretation, you reduce reaction. Confident individuals are careful authors of their internal stories. They refuse to write dramatic scripts about small inconveniences. They do not turn delays into betrayals. They do not turn criticism into character attacks. They do not turn setbacks into identity crises. They choose empowering meanings. This does not mean denying reality. It means selecting the interpretation that strengthens you rather than weakens you. Consider rejection. If you interpret rejection as proof of inadequacy, your confidence erodes. If you interpret it as filtering, removing what was not aligned, your confidence remains intact. The event is the same. The meaning changes everything. Your emotional life is shaped by the explanations you give yourself. And here is something subtle but powerful. People who cannot control meaning become emotionally dependent on external validation. Every compliment raises them. Every criticism lowers them. They are unstable because their interpretations are unstable. But when you consciously decide what events mean, you create internal stability. Someone's praise becomes pleasant, not intoxicating. Someone's criticism becomes informative, not destructive. Success becomes progress, not identity. Failure becomes instruction, not condemnation. You remain steady because your meanings are measured. It is important to understand that the first interpretation your mind offers is not always the most accurate. It is often the fastest, and the fastest is usually influenced by insecurity, past experiences, or fear. If you accept it without examination, you surrender control. Instead, slow down the narrative, challenge it, replace it if necessary. If a project fails, instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," say, "This approach didn't work." That subtle shift protects your identity while allowing growth. If someone ignores your idea, instead of saying, "They don't respect me," say, "It didn't resonate this time." Again, same event, different meaning, different emotional outcome. Over time, this discipline becomes automatic. You no longer spiral over small events. You no longer assume the worst. You interpret calmly and deliberately. And something powerful happens when you control meaning. You become difficult to destabilize. People may attempt to provoke you, but if you refuse to interpret their behavior as threatening, their influence weakens. Situations may shift unexpectedly, but if you interpret them as adjustments rather than disasters, your composure holds. Meaning is emotional fuel. If you choose calm interpretations, you create calm responses. This does not make you passive, it makes you strategic. You still learn, you still adapt, you still improve, but you do not collapse under the weight of exaggerated narratives. Remember this clearly, your mind is always explaining your life to you. Make sure it is explaining wisely. When you control the meaning of events, you take ownership of your emotional landscape. You stop living at the mercy of assumption. You stop reacting to stories that may not even be true. And in that ownership, confidence deepens. Because you are no longer asking the world, "What does this say about me?" You are deciding, calmly and deliberately, what it means and what it does not. That decision is sovereignty. And sovereignty is the core of dangerous confidence. Chapter 8. Replace validation with self-authority. Validation is a subtle addiction. It rarely feels destructive in the beginning. It feels good to be praised. It feels reassuring to be approved. It feels safe to be agreed with. But over time, the need for validation becomes a quiet dependency. And dependency weakens confidence. If your sense of worth rises and falls based on how others respond to you, then your confidence does not belong to you, it belongs to them. Self-authority is different. It is the ability to approve of yourself without waiting for applause. It is the ability to evaluate your actions using your own internal standards rather than the shifting opinions of the crowd. This is not arrogance, it is stability. When you rely on validation, you begin adjusting your behavior to secure it. You soften your opinions so they are more acceptable. You hesitate to set boundaries in case someone disapproves. You measure your success by external recognition instead of internal progress. Slowly, you shape yourself around reactions, and then you wonder why you feel uncertain. The truth is simple. When your confidence depends on approval, you must constantly perform. You become hyper-aware of how you are being perceived. You monitor facial expressions. You replay conversations in your mind. You analyze tone and body language. This constant monitoring drains energy and fractures focus. Self-authority frees you from that surveillance. It begins with creating an internal scorecard. Instead of asking, "Did they like what I said?" ask, "Was I aligned with my values?" Instead of asking, "Did they approve of my decision?" ask, "Did I act with clarity and intention?" Shift the evaluation inward. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. You have been trained to seek feedback from the outside, and feedback is useful, but it should inform you, not define you. When someone praises you, receive it calmly. Do not let it inflate you. When someone criticizes you, examine it thoughtfully. Do not let it collapse you. Both praise and criticism are data, not identity. Self-authority means you decide what to accept and what to discard. It also requires honesty. You cannot build internal confidence on self-deception. If you make a mistake, acknowledge it privately. If you underperform, admit it to yourself without drama. Then improve. This internal accountability strengthens trust in yourself. The more you trust your own judgment, the less you crave constant reassurance. Imagine entering a room without scanning for approval. You speak because you have something to say, not because you want validation. You dress in a way that aligns with your standards, not trends. You pursue goals because they matter to you, not because they impress others. That is self-authority in motion. It does not mean you ignore relationships. It means you do not surrender your identity to maintain them. You can listen to advice without abandoning your instincts. You can adapt without losing your center. There is a quiet dignity in someone who does not beg for affirmation. They move with calm certainty. They are not rigid. They are not defensive. They are simply anchored. You must also be careful of subtle validation traps. Social approval, public recognition, visible success. These can feel like proof of worth. But if you depend on them emotionally, you become anxious when they fluctuate. And they will fluctuate. Attention rises and falls. Opinions change. Trends shift. If your confidence is rooted in these external markers, it will never be stable. Anchor it instead in discipline, in consistency, in personal growth. When you know you are improving daily, when you know you are keeping your promises to yourself, external reactions lose their intensity. You become harder to manipulate because your worth is not up for negotiation. This shift takes practice. Each time you notice yourself seeking approval unnecessarily, pause, ask, why do I need this response? Often you will discover insecurity beneath it, a desire to be seen as competent, a fear of being judged, a need to feel significant. Do not criticize yourself for these desires. Simply observe them, then choose not to act from them. Over time the craving weakens. You begin feeling satisfied by your own standards. You develop an internal voice that says, I know what I did. I know why I did it. That is enough. That voice becomes your foundation. When validation no longer dictates your emotional state, you become steady. Praise does not intoxicate you. Criticism does not destabilize you. Silence does not frighten you. You act from principle, not applause. And this is where dangerous confidence truly deepens. Because a person who validates themselves cannot be easily controlled. They do not bend under social pressure. They do not shrink under disapproval. They do not overextend to earn acceptance. They stand firm, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly. Self-authority is not about dominating others. It is about governing yourself. And once you govern yourself, the world loses its grip on your confidence. Chapter 9. Make solitude your training ground. Noise weakens self-awareness. When you are constantly surrounded by opinions, conversations, notifications, and distractions, you rarely hear your own thoughts clearly. You begin reacting to the world without fully understanding yourself. Your confidence becomes performative, because it is always being measured against something external. Solitude changes that. Solitude is not isolation. It is intentional separation from noise, so you can strengthen your internal world. It is where emotional discipline is refined. It is where identity solidifies. It is where you discover whether your confidence is real or simply social momentum. A person who cannot sit alone with their thoughts will always depend on distraction, and distraction keeps insecurity hidden but never resolved. When you choose solitude deliberately, You confront yourself. You notice your anxieties without the ability to escape into conversation. You see your habits clearly. You hear the internal narratives that usually get drowned out. This can be uncomfortable at first. Silence amplifies what you have been avoiding, but discomfort is training. In solitude, you begin practicing non-reaction in its purest form. No one is provoking you. No one is challenging you. Yet your mind will still generate scenarios, imagined arguments, remembered insults, future worries. You will feel emotions rise simply from thought. This is where mastery begins. Instead of reacting to your own thoughts, you observe them. Instead of chasing every internal narrative, you let it pass. You train yourself to sit with discomfort without needing immediate stimulation. That discipline transfers into real life. If you cannot handle your own mind in silence, you will struggle to remain calm under social pressure. But if you learn to steady yourself alone, external noise loses its intensity. Solitude is also where you sharpen your standards. Away from influence, you decide what matters to you. You examine your values without comparison. You set goals without performance. You build clarity without applause. This creates internal alignment. When you return to the world after deliberate solitude, you move differently. You are less reactive because you are less distracted. You are less defensive because you understand yourself better. You are less desperate for validation because you have already faced your own judgment. There is strength in being comfortable alone. Many people fear solitude because it removes distraction. Without constant input, they feel restless. That restlessness reveals dependency. It shows how much they rely on noise to avoid self-reflection. Dangerous confidence requires the opposite. It requires self-familiarity. Spend time regularly without devices, without conversation, without entertainment. Walk alone, sit quietly, reflect deliberately. Journal your thoughts. Ask yourself difficult questions. What triggers you most? Why? What do you fear losing? What are you protecting when you react? The answers you uncover in solitude reduce your reactivity in public. Solitude also builds independence. When you enjoy your own company, you no longer tolerate unhealthy environments just to avoid being alone. You no longer compromise standards to secure attention. You become selective, not from arrogance, but from self-respect. There is a calm confidence in someone who does not fear silence. Additionally, solitude strengthens focus. In quiet environments, your attention sharpens, your thoughts slow down, your breathing steadies. This physiological calm becomes familiar. Later, in stressful situations, you can recall that state. You know what steadiness feels like because you have practiced it. Solitude becomes rehearsal for composure. It is important to understand that this is not withdrawal from life. It is preparation for life. Just as physical training strengthens the body before competition, solitude strengthens the mind before interaction. When you consistently return to silence, you begin noticing subtle shifts. Your reactions shorten. Your impulses weaken. Your decisions feel more deliberate. You are less eager to speak, less eager to defend, less eager to impress, because you are already anchored. The world respects those who are not afraid of being alone, not because solitude is glamorous, but because it signals self-sufficiency. A person who can stand comfortably in silence is not easily pressured. They are not easily manipulated by the fear of exclusion. Make solitude your training ground, not your escape. Use it to refine your reactions. Use it to examine your motives. Use it to build clarity that cannot be shaken by external noise. When you become strong alone, you become steady everywhere, and steadiness, practiced in silence and carried into the world, is one of the clearest signs of dangerous confidence. Chapter 10. Turn off notifications and turn on discipline. A single sound can fracture an hour of focus. A vibration can redirect your thoughts in an instant. Notifications seem small, harmless, even helpful, but each one carries a hidden command. Stop what you are doing and pay attention to this instead. When you obey that command repeatedly, you train yourself to live reactively. Reactive living feels urgent. It feels connected. It feels responsive. But it is rarely productive. When your day is shaped by incoming alerts, you surrender control of your priorities. Instead of choosing what deserves your focus, you respond to whatever appears first. Over time, this habit erodes discipline. You begin to expect interruption. Notifications are not neutral. They are interruptions packaged as convenience. Consider how often you interrupt meaningful work to check something that could have waited. A message that required no immediate response. An update with no real consequence. A notification that simply reminded you of activity elsewhere. These small interruptions accumulate. They fragment your thinking and shorten your attention span. Discipline begins with removal. Start by turning off non-essential notifications completely. Social media alerts, promotional emails, news updates. If something is truly important, you will check it intentionally. You do not need to be summoned by every digital whisper. Silence is not ignorance. It is control. For essential communication, create boundaries. Decide specific times to check messages and stick to them. Instead of reacting instantly, respond deliberately. This shift changes your posture from reactive to intentional. You are no longer waiting for alerts. You are choosing engagement. You may worry that reducing notifications will make you less responsive. In reality, it often improves your responses. When you check messages at designated times, you are calmer and more focused. You reply thoughtfully, instead of impulsively. Quality replaces speed. Another powerful practice is creating interruption-free zones. Define periods during your day when notifications are completely silenced. Deep work sessions, creative time, strategic planning. Protect these windows fiercely. During this time, nothing enters without your permission. At first, you may feel uneasy. The silence might seem unfamiliar. You may wonder if you are missing something. That feeling is not a signal of danger. It is the withdrawal from constant stimulation. Let it pass. With repetition, silence becomes strength. Notifications also shape your sense of importance. When your device constantly demands attention, it creates a false sense of urgency. Everything feels immediate. Everything feels critical. But few things truly are. By reducing notifications, you restore perspective. You begin distinguishing between urgent and important. Urgent demands reaction. Important demands intention. Discipline grows when you decide what matters before the world does. Instead of being pulled by alerts, you push forward on chosen priorities. Instead of reacting to noise, you create value. This is the difference between living in response mode and creator mode. There is also a psychological shift that occurs. When you are constantly interrupted, your brain adapts to shallow engagement. When interruptions decrease, your brain adapts to depth. Over time, you become more comfortable with sustained concentration. Focus feels natural, instead of forced. Communicate your boundaries when necessary. Let colleagues know when you are unavailable for immediate replies. Set expectations for response times. Most people respect clarity, and those who do not will adjust when they realize your standards are consistent. Remember, accessibility is a privilege you grant, not an obligation you owe. You can be reachable without being constantly interrupted. You can be responsive without being reactive. Turning off notifications is not about isolation. It is about alignment. It is about aligning your attention with your goals instead of with random digital triggers. It is about creating a mental environment where discipline can thrive. Small changes create significant shifts. One less alert, one protected hour, one uninterrupted session. These small acts of control compound into stronger focus and clearer thinking. Turn off the noise. Turn on discipline. And when your mind is no longer pulled in every direction, you begin moving steadily in one, forward. Chapter 11. Protect your mornings like a champion. The first hour of your day is not ordinary. It is a launch pad. It sets the emotional tone, the mental direction, and the pace for everything that follows. If you begin your morning reacting to notifications, scrolling through updates, and absorbing other people's priorities, you start the day behind. Not in time, but in control. Morning is when your mind is freshest, your willpower is strongest, your thinking is clearest. And yet, many people surrender this powerful window to random digital input. Before their feet even touch the floor, they are checking messages. Before their mind has fully awakened, it is flooded with news, opinions, and demands. That habit shapes identity. It trains your brain to expect stimulation immediately. It conditions you to react instead of create. It tells your subconscious that external noise matters more than internal intention. Champions do not begin their day in reaction mode. They begin in control. Protecting your morning does not require an extreme routine. It requires intention. The first rule is simple: delay digital consumption. Do not check your phone immediately after waking. Do not open email before setting your own direction. Give yourself space to think before you absorb. Even 15 to 30 minutes of protected time makes a difference. Use it to center yourself. Reflect, plan, write. Move your body. Read something purposeful. Decide what matters today before the world tells you what should matter. When you begin with clarity, the day unfolds differently. Instead of chasing tasks, you pursue priorities. Instead of reacting emotionally to early stimuli, you act deliberately. The morning becomes an anchor. There is also a psychological advantage. Completing a meaningful action early builds momentum. When you accomplish something intentional before distractions appear, confidence increases. You begin the day with a small win. That win influences your posture. You feel proactive, instead of pressured. Consider starting with creation, not consumption. Write a page. Draft an outline. Plan your top 3 priorities. Review your goals. Create before you consume. This simple reversal strengthens discipline. It reinforces identity. You become someone who produces first. Your environment matters here as well. Keep your phone out of immediate reach. Charge it outside the bedroom. If possible, use a physical alarm clock if necessary. Make the intentional choice easier than the reactive one. Protecting your morning also supports deeper work later. When you begin calmly and deliberately, your nervous system stays steadier. Stress decreases. Focus increases. The chaos of the outside world does not instantly invade your thoughts. You may think you need to check messages immediately for fear of missing something urgent. But true emergencies are rare, and even when they occur, a short delay rarely changes outcomes. What does change outcomes is how you shape your daily mindset. Consistency matters more than perfection. Some mornings will not go as planned. That is normal. What matters is returning to the structure. Recommit. Refocus. Small repeated acts of discipline create lasting change. Notice how different your day feels when it begins with intention. Conversations feel calmer. Decisions feel clearer. You move through tasks with direction. That is not coincidence. It is the result of choosing control over chaos. Morning is your mental foundation. Build it carefully. Do not allow random notifications to determine your emotional state. Do not allow external demands to dictate your first thoughts. Decide who you will be today, before the noise arrives. Protect your mornings like a champion. Protects training time. Guard it. Respect it. Use it wisely. When you consistently start your day in control, you build a rhythm of discipline that carries into every area of your life. Win the morning, and you strengthen the day. Strengthen the day, and you shape the future. It begins with that first intentional choice. Before the world speaks. Before the screen glows. Before the screen glows. Choose till it. Choose to begin, on your terms. Chapter 12. Protect your evenings, to restore your mind. How you end your day matters just as much as how you begin it. Evening is not simply the leftover space after productivity. It is the recovery phase. It is when your mind processes, repairs, and prepares for tomorrow. If your nights are filled with endless scrolling, late notifications, and mental overstimulation, you carry digital noise straight into your rest. A restless evening produces a restless mind, and a restless mind cannot recover deeply. Throughout the day you absorb information, solve problems, make decisions, and navigate demands. All of that requires energy. If you never create a deliberate transition from activity to rest, your nervous system remains alert. You may lie down physically, but mentally you are still active, still scrolling, still reacting, still consuming. Protecting your evening begins with creating a digital sunset. Choose a specific time when screens begin to power down. Not necessarily off completely, but reduced intentionally. Silence non-essential notifications. Close unnecessary apps. Signal to your brain that stimulation is ending. This is not about strict deprivation. It is about rhythm. Just as the sun sets gradually, your digital engagement should taper off. Replace high-stimulation content with calmer activities. Reading, journaling, reflection, light planning for tomorrow. These practices slow the mind instead of accelerating it. Sleep quality is directly connected to cognitive performance. When you cut your rest short with late-night scrolling, you are not only losing hours of sleep, you are reducing clarity, focus, and emotional stability the next day. Fatigue makes discipline harder. It weakens willpower. It amplifies distraction. Evening restoration is strategic. Another powerful habit is closing open loops. Before ending your day, review unfinished tasks. Capture anything still on your mind in your trusted system. When thoughts remain unrecorded, your brain continues rehearsing them at night. Writing them down creates closure. It tells your mind, this is handled for now. Reflection also strengthens growth. Ask yourself simple questions. What did I do well today? Where did I get distracted? What will I improve tomorrow? This gentle evaluation builds awareness without self-criticism. It transforms experience into learning. Many people use evening scrolling as an escape. After a long day, stimulation feels like relief. But relief that exhausts you further is not true recovery. True recovery restores. It does not drain. Consider your environment as well. Keep devices out of your immediate sleep space if possible. The presence of a glowing screen near your bed invites temptation. Even a quick glance can turn into extended engagement. Reduce friction for rest. Increase friction for distraction. There is also emotional restoration. Digital spaces often amplify comparison, outrage, and urgency. Ending your day with such inputs shapes your final emotional state. That emotional state carries into sleep and lingers into morning. Choose calmer inputs. Choose gratitude. Choose reflection over reaction. Consistency builds rhythm. When your body and mind expect a gradual wind down each night, falling asleep becomes easier. Waking up becomes clearer. Energy stabilizes. Focus strengthens. Performance improves naturally, because recovery improves. Evening protection is not about rigid rules. It is about respect. Respect for your mind. Respect for your energy. Respect for tomorrow's performance. Every time you choose rest over random scrolling, you strengthen discipline. Every time you close your day, intentionally, you reinforce control. Remember, you cannot operate at peak performance without peak recovery. Your brain is not a machine that runs endlessly without maintenance. It requires restoration, silence, space. Protect your evenings as deliberately as you protect your mornings. Create a digital sunset. Close your loops. Reflect with intention. Step away from constant input. Allow your mind to settle. When you end the day calmly, you begin the next day stronger. Clarity replaces fog. Focus replaces fatigue. Discipline feels easier because your energy is renewed. Your performance tomorrow begins tonight. Guard it wisely. Chapter 13. Replace consumption with creation. Consumption is easy. Creation is demanding. Scrolling requires no courage. Building does. Watching others perform requires no discipline. Producing your own work does. And yet, the quality of your life is determined far more by what you create than by what you consume. Every day you are absorbing information, articles, videos, posts, opinions, updates. Some of it may be useful, much of it is simply noise. The problem is not occasional consumption. The problem is imbalance. When consumption dominates your time, creation shrinks. And when creation shrinks, progress slows. Consumers observe. Creators build. There is a subtle psychological shift that happens when you create consistently. You stop seeing yourself as a passive participant in the world and start seeing yourself as a contributor. You begin shaping ideas instead of reacting to them. You begin producing value instead of just absorbing it. Digital clutter often hides in passive habits. You open your phone with no clear purpose. You browse without direction. You watch one video that leads to another. An hour disappears. At the end you may feel entertained, but rarely fulfilled. Fulfillment comes from effort, not ease. Creation demands focus. It demands attention. It demands the willingness to sit with difficulty. That is why so many avoid it. But that difficulty is precisely what strengthens you. Each time you choose to write instead of scroll, to plan instead of browse, to build instead of watch, you reinforce discipline. Start by asking a simple question. What am I building right now? If you cannot answer clearly, consumption will fill the gap. Creation requires intention. It may be a business idea, a fitness goal, a skill you are learning, a creative project, or a deeper level of expertise in your field. Choose something concrete. Then allocate time specifically for creation. Not leftover time. Not spare moments. Protected time. During that window your only job is to produce. No background browsing. No parallel scrolling. Just focused output. The more regularly you practice this, the stronger the habit becomes. Creation does not have to be dramatic. A single page written. A concept refined. A workout completed. A skill practiced for an hour. Small outputs compound. Over weeks and months, these small acts of creation accumulate into meaningful results. There is also a mental clarity that comes from producing. When you create, you clarify your thoughts. Writing sharpens thinking. Building exposes gaps in understanding. Speaking refines ideas. Creation forces engagement at a deeper level than passive consumption ever will. Another powerful benefit is reduced comparison. When you constantly consume, you see highlight reels of other people's lives and achievements. It becomes easy to measure yourself against curated images. When you create, your focus shifts inward. You measure progress against your own standards. You compare today's effort to yesterday's effort. Shift your identity from consumer to creator. Tell yourself, I am someone who produces. That identity influences choices. When tempted to scroll mindlessly, you pause and ask, does this help me build? If not, you return to the task. Balance still matters. Strategic consumption can inspire and educate, but it should serve creation, not replace it. Learn with purpose. Study to apply. Consume to improve. Always link input to output. Notice how you feel after a day dominated by consumption versus a day anchored in creation. After consumption, you may feel informed but restless. After creation, you feel stretched but satisfied. There is pride in building something tangible, even if it is small. You are not here merely to observe the world. You are here to contribute to it, to shape it in your own way. That requires effort. It requires discipline. It requires turning off the endless stream long enough to focus on producing. Replace consumption with creation as your default mode. Let input be intentional and limited. Let output be consistent and meaningful. When you build daily, even imperfectly, momentum grows, confidence strengthens, results appear. In a world overflowing with content, creators stand out. In a world full of noise, builders rise. Choose to build. Choose to produce. Choose to contribute. Because what you create will define you far more than what you consume ever could. Chapter 14. Build a focused identity. Habits shape behavior, but identity shapes habits. If you see yourself as easily distracted, you will tolerate distraction. If you see yourself as disciplined, you will protect your focus. Digital minimalism is not just a strategy, it is an identity shift. You become what you repeatedly tolerate. If you tolerate constant notifications, you become reactive. If you tolerate cluttered systems, you become scattered. If you tolerate unfinished tasks, you become inconsistent. These patterns do not define you permanently, but they influence you daily. Over time, repeated behavior hardens into self-image. A focused identity begins with a decision. Decide that you are someone who values clarity, someone who protects attention, someone who finishes what they start. This decision may feel aspirational at first, but identity grows through action. Every small disciplined act reinforces it. When you turn off unnecessary notifications, you are not just reducing noise. You are affirming, my focus matters. When you choose deep work over shallow browsing, you are affirming, my time has purpose. These statements, repeated in action, reshape how you see yourself. Identity-based discipline is stronger than willpower. Willpower says, I should not scroll right now. Identity says, I am not the kind of person who wastes hours scrolling. The first requires constant effort. The second becomes natural. Ask yourself, who am I becoming through my daily digital habits? Are you becoming reactive or intentional? Fragmented or focused? Passive or productive? Honest reflection creates awareness. Awareness creates choice. Your environment supports identity. If your phone is filled with distracting apps on the home screen, your environment signals impulsiveness. If your workspace is clean and structured, it signals discipline. Align your surroundings with the person you intend to become. Identity thrives in supportive conditions. There will be moments of weakness, days when you drift, moments when distraction wins. Do not let those moments define you. Identity is built through consistency over time, not perfection in every instance. When you slip, return quickly. Each return strengthens resolve. Focused individuals share certain qualities. They protect their mornings. They guard their deep work sessions. They say no without guilt when commitments misalign. They value sleep and recovery. They measure progress through output, not through online activity. These behaviors are not random. They reflect identity. Repetition is powerful. Each day you reinforce focus. Even in small ways, you strengthen the narrative you tell yourself. I am disciplined. I am intentional. I build before I browse. These are not empty phrases. They become truths when backed by action. There is also self-respect embedded in focus. When you honor your time, you demonstrate respect for your goals. When you avoid meaningless distraction, you demonstrate respect for your potential. Self-respect fuels consistency because you begin acting in alignment with your standards. Standards define identity. Raise your standards around attention. Decide that constant distraction is unacceptable. Decide that shallow effort is beneath your capability. Decide that your goals deserve depth. Over time, this focused identity influences more than productivity. It influences confidence. You trust yourself more because you follow through. You feel calmer because your environment is structured. You feel purposeful because your actions align with intention. You are not trying to eliminate technology from your life. You are redefining your relationship with it. You are choosing to be a deliberate user, not an impulsive participant. That choice reflects maturity. It reflects growth. Remember, identity is not declared once. It is demonstrated daily. Each focused session, each protected boundary, each completed task adds another layer to who you are becoming. Build the identity of someone who values clarity over chaos, depth over distraction, creation over consumption. When that identity becomes stable, discipline no longer feels forced. It feels natural. And when focus becomes part of who you are, peak performance stops being a distant goal. It becomes your standard way of operating. Chapter 15. Live light. Think, clear, perform, at your peak. A life weighed down by digital excess feels heavy even when nothing physical is being carried. Too many tabs open, too many notifications waiting, too many unfinished loops in the background. You move through your days with a subtle sense of pressure, as if something is always pulling at your attention. That pressure drains performance. Living light is not about owning less technology. It is about being owned by less of it. When you remove unnecessary digital noise, something remarkable happens. Your thoughts slow down. Your breathing deepens. Decisions become clearer. You are no longer juggling dozens of minor inputs at once. Your mind has space. And in that space, strength grows. Clarity is a competitive advantage. In a distracted world, the person who can focus deeply, think calmly, and execute consistently will always stand out. Not because they are louder, not because they are busier, but because they are sharper. They see what others miss. They finish what others abandon. They sustain effort where others scatter. Living light begins with continued awareness. Even after decluttering your devices, reducing notifications, and building systems, you must guard against gradual drift. Clutter has a way of returning quietly. New apps appear. Subscriptions accumulate. Habits slip. That is why simplicity is not a one-time event. It is a lifestyle. Make regular review part of your rhythm. Evaluate your tools. Assess your habits. Remove what no longer serves. Refine what feels heavy. This discipline keeps your environment aligned with your goals. Thinking clearly requires margin. When every minute is filled with input, your brain never consolidates. It never reflects. It never strategizes deeply. Build pauses into your day. Short breaks between tasks. Walks without devices. Quiet moments for planning. These pauses are not wasted time. They are integration time. Peak performance is not frantic. It is controlled. You do not need to hustle constantly to perform at a high level. In fact, constant hustle without clarity leads to burnout. Performance improves when effort is focused, rest is protected, and systems reduce friction. Living light supports all three. There is freedom in knowing you are not dependent on constant stimulation. Freedom in being unreachable for periods of deep work. Freedom in choosing when to engage and when to disconnect. That freedom strengthens confidence. You begin to feel in control of your environment rather than controlled by it. Your relationships also benefit. When you are fully present, conversations deepen. When you are not distracted by a device, attention feels genuine. Living light extends beyond productivity. It improves connection. Notice how different your internal state feels compared to when you began this journey. Less urgency, less scattered thinking, more intentional movement. That is the compounding effect of simplicity. Small disciplined choices create a stable foundation. Peak performance is not a sudden breakthrough. It is the result of sustained clarity, sustained focus, sustained alignment between tools and goals. When your digital life supports your ambitions, instead of undermining them, progress accelerates naturally. Keep your systems simple. Keep your commitments aligned. Keep your mornings intentional and your evenings restorative. Continue choosing creation over consumption. Continue protecting your attention as your most valuable resource. Living light does not mean living small. It means removing what is unnecessary, so what is essential can expand. Your ideas expand. Your productivity expands. Your confidence expands. In a world that constantly adds, you have chosen to subtract wisely, and in subtraction, you have discovered strength. Think clear, act deliberate. Move forward without excess weight. When distraction loses its grip, your potential rises. When clarity becomes your standard, performance becomes your reality. Live light. Think clear. Perform at your peak. Conclusion. You began this journey surrounded by noise, notifications competing for your attention, open loops cluttering your mind, endless streams of information demanding reaction. At first it may have felt normal, familiar, even unavoidable. But step by step, you have seen the truth. Distraction is not harmless. It is expensive. The cost of digital clutter is not measured in gigabytes. It is measured in lost focus, in unfinished work, in diluted ambition, in evenings that pass without restoration, in mornings that begin in reaction instead of intention, and perhaps most costly of all, in the quiet erosion of your potential. But you have also seen something more powerful. Clarity is not complicated. It is chosen. When you turned off unnecessary notifications, you reclaimed fragments of attention. When you cleaned your digital space, you reduced mental friction. When you audited your inputs, you strengthened your thinking. When you replaced consumption with creation, you began building instead of browsing. These were not dramatic acts. They were deliberate ones, and deliberate actions compound. Digital minimalism is not about rejecting technology. It is about mastering it. It is about ensuring that every tool you use serves a purpose, aligned with your goals. It is about moving from reactive living to intentional execution. It is about becoming someone who values depth over noise, focus over frenzy, discipline over impulse. Remember this: your attention is your life, in its most concentrated form. Where you place it determines who you become. Scatter it carelessly, and your progress fragments. Guard it wisely, and your performance strengthens. You do not need more apps. You do not need more hacks. You do not need constant stimulation. You need clarity. You need systems. You need boundaries. And most of all, you need the decision to protect what matters. There will always be new platforms, new distractions, new digital temptations. The world will not grow quieter. That is why your discipline must grow stronger. The person who can remain focused in a distracted age holds a rare advantage. That advantage compounds daily. Start small if you must. One notification turned off. One focused hour protected. One evening restored. One morning claimed. Small actions build identity. Identity builds consistency. Consistency builds results. You are not eliminating convenience. You are eliminating chaos. You are not disconnecting from the world. You are reconnecting with your priorities. And in doing so you create space for your best work, your clearest thinking, and your highest performance. Peak performance is not frantic. It is intentional. It is built on controlled inputs, protected energy, and focused output. It is sustained by simplicity. So from here forward, guard your attention like an asset. Design your digital life with purpose. Create more than you consume. Finish what you start. Protect your mornings. Restore your evenings. Live light. When distractions shrink, your potential expands, and when clarity becomes your standard, nothing feels overwhelming, only achievable.